Hey guys, I was thinking about how we draw conclusions, and it's something I've been thinking about for quite a while now. For a few weeks, I've really been studying it and thinking, why do some people draw better conclusions than other people, and why do we draw really good conclusions sometimes, but other times we don't. And so, we've all seen people that we look at and we think, wow, they just seem to have some really magical instincts that tends to be right more often than not. And so I want to trust what they have to say. And then there's other people like, you hear what they have to say and you don't believe a word that they say because they just don't think right. They don't conclude right for whatever reason. And so we want to dig into that and I just want to share a little bit of what I have discovered just through reading and doing some research. So what I've learned is that there's really like two major categories of types of thinking or types of conclusions that we can draw, and it's not really two different ideas. It's really one long spectrum, but we're going to kind of split that into two sections just so you can kind of see the whole picture. So for the first kind is heuristics, and if you've never heard of the word heuristics, really just to make it simple, heuristics is a way for your brain to create shortcuts in your thinking so that you can be more efficient and more effective in how you draw conclusions. It's the automatic thoughts that take place from habits. You do something over and over, and it after a while, it just becomes automatic. So it's like driving a car or getting up and doing your morning routine. You don't have to do a lot of critical thinking. You just get up and do it because it's habitual. And so the first three things that I'm going to talk about really fall under the heuristics, which is instinctual conclusions, or they prioritize efficiency before certainty, because we really need that. We really need to be able to make efficient, quick conclusions all through the day so that we can just move forward and just be efficient and be effective. If we had to really use our critical thinking skills all through the day on everything that we do, we'd be brainless. It would take up so much energy and so much thought energy that we would be wiped out before noon probably. So it's really important that our brains have heuristics in place so we can really have those shortcuts and do the automatic things well. But we're also going to look at the downside to that. And so the second category that I want to talk about is more critical thinking, and this is making mindful conclusions. It prioritizes efficiency, or I'm sorry, it prioritizes accuracy over efficiency. And so sometimes just coming up with a fast, efficient answer isn't sufficient. Sometimes you gotta think through it, and it's really more important that you come up with the right answer or the most effective answer. And so this second category of conclusions is really based on critical thinking. So let's go back to the heuristics here. So I'm gonna give you three ideas that are from heuristical thinking, and they're very simple, and they kind of get a little bit more complex as you go all the way through all six of these. But so the first three here, the first is binary-based conclusions. So binary-based, when you think of binary, you think of like ones and zeros, right? So, and this is really simple. It's black and white thinking. It's true or false. It's yes or no. If it's what I see, it must be. That's kind of how you can conclude there. And it's really based on subjective observation. Little children really think this way because that's all they know how. If they see it, they believe it. And that's that's probably what we do most of all day long. So one of the biggest problems with binary-based conclusions is that not everything is as it seems, and so it has a high probability of being wrong. Sometimes it's just based on extremes. It's just black or white, yes or no. But there's a lot of things that just aren't that simple, and so there's a lot of ideas in the world that just seem to be true and they just aren't. And so, all right, moving on to the next one here. The second of the heuristic is convenience-based conclusions. And this is my favorite to talk about because it probably drives me nuts more than anything else. So convenience-based conclusions really is based on bias. It's bias alignment. So it's when you choose to believe something or choose to draw a conclusion because it's something that you agree with, or it's something that you don't agree with. It already aligns with what you prefer. And so it's very convenient for you to make that choice. You see this in the political world all the time. People that you like, you'll believe everything that they say. And candidates that you don't like because they're from the other side of the aisle, you just won't believe in anything that they say because it's not something that you want to believe. And so convenience-based conclusions are very simple because it takes no thought. You just conclude whatever you agree with. And so that's really the biggest problem with that. It's based on subjective opinion as opposed to objective thought, right? It's very convenient to think that way. But it's just not very effective most of the time. And so, all right. So the third category here of the heuristics is conditional-based conclusions. Conditional-based conclusions. This is really when the answer depends on clarification of the question. Okay, when it's more of a conditional answer for someone. If somebody says, "Hey, do you like fish?" You might say, well, that depends. I like walleye and I like cod, but I don't particularly like salmon or tuna. Okay, so you can't answer that question, do I like fish, with just a yes or no. It depends. That's one condition. If-then statements could be that. If this, then this is the answer. But if not, then this is a different answer. So it's really more of a conditional-based conclusions. And this is convenient because it helps you hone in a little bit closer on accuracy. When somebody asks a very vague question, you can clarify the question a little bit or ask for clarification or give them a depends type of an answer. And it can be more clear than if you just kind of use the black and white answer. And so and a problem that you can get from the conditional based conclusions can be that it can also be used for control and manipulation. For instance, you see this in politics all the time. Somebody might ask them a question that they would really like to avoid. And so rather than just giving a straight answer, they might use this technique to avoid the question. So those are the three heuristics that I've identified that really help us to make instinctual conclusions more effective or more efficient. And so we're going to move on now to the critical thinking, which is more mindful conclusions. It prioritizes accuracy over efficiency. And I've got three of these to share with you as well. And these are kind of interesting. So the first is investigative-based conclusions. So investigative-based conclusions. So what that means is this is where there's multiple options. There's different choices that the truth could be. And it's really about trying to discover what that is. Maybe think about a detective, trying to solve a crime, that type of thing. So you're asking yourself the question, like, where does the evidence lead you to? Okay, and using process of elimination is important there too. And just having good research skills where you're asking a lot of questions, you're just gathering more evidence so that you have more information to go on to make a more accurate conclusion. So this is definitely reserving judgment. So on the heuristical side, it was all about making efficient, quick decisions that help you. Well, this is different. We're really focusing on accuracy and certainty if possible. The good thing about that is it's you really have a better chance. The more you dig into things, the more accurate you're going to be, the more likelihood you're going to get to the right conclusion. The problem is that sometimes it's really time consuming too. And so it can take you take up a lot of time, and you may not even find the answer. It's like when you lose your wallet, you've got to look for it for a long time, and when you find it, you find it. That's great, but sometimes you don't find it, and so you waste all of that time looking because you're exploring more options. And then when you don't find it, then it's a big waste of time because you never resolved it. So that's the problem with investigative-based conclusions, is it really does hone in on accuracy, but you don't always get the answers that you want because sometimes mysteries just remain. And so, in our world and science and just the universe, there's all kinds of these out there that the best we can do is we can investigate and draw a lot of conclusions, but it's hard to find solid answers without really gaining a lot more evidence to base it on. So, all right. So the second of the critical thinking here is this is causational-based conclusion. So causational-based conclusion. So think about cause and effect. This is really where we're searching for the root cause. Okay, so we're not really paying attention to all of just the effects. We're really looking for the cause. Okay, and we're using logic and reason to kind of hone in on that. So we're looking for the why when it comes to people, and we're trying to figure out why their behaviors, why they do what they do. We look at motives. We look at the different inputs that might cause them to behave a certain way, and it's really important that we use causational-based conclusions, because if we really just are addressing what we see, we really could just be addressing all of the symptoms of a problem and ignoring the cause of it. And when you do that, you just keep dealing with the same problem over and over and over again, and you never really get to the root cause to stop what's causing all of those symptoms. And so, it uses process of determination. It's an excellent way to draw conclusions and to think through things and get it right. It really does hone in on accuracy pretty well. But it also leads to speculation sometimes. Sometimes people can kind of use this information. They can kind of twist the information to make it seem what they want a little bit, because proof is hard to find sometimes as well. So nothing's perfect with this. All right, so let's go to the last category here of critical thinking, and that is probability-based conclusions. So probability-based conclusions really are, this is how you can hone in on accuracy the best you can when something is maybe unprovable outcomes, right? And so trying to figure out the stock market, what a certain stock is going to be worth in the future, or what's going to happen in the future. Well, you can't prove it, so all you can do is you can speculate the best you can, and by using past information and the facts of what's taken place in the past, and then using forecasting tools to look forward, you can get a better idea of what might happen. So it really does use statistical skills and likelihood and odds and trends. So you're really trying to hone in, maybe it's a percentage that you want to hone in on. And this is really valuable in the business world, because in the business world, we use percentages for lots of things. It's a gauge, whatever it is, you can look at it as a percentage in a lot of ways. So in business, if you want to shoot for something, a success rate of 35%, for instance, and you're at 30%, well, you're not even going to know what to aim for if you don't know where you're at. And if you don't know the statistics on what the historical evidence shows where you've been, then you really don't have any basis on concluding anything. So it's really research heavy. So finding as much research as you can that give you the better odds. It's really mathematical based, at least it is as well, because people that are really good at math and forecasting and thinking through things and can come up with probabilities, they really help people, especially in the business world. They really help to know what your chances are. You want to make decisions based on likelihood when you don't have certainty, and so it's really helpful to be good at probability-based conclusions. So I hope these have helped. I would say that that of these two, we can really go wrong and cause ourselves heartache when we use the wrong mode of conclusion for your circumstances. For instance, if you're really just jumping to quick conclusions when you need to be using more of a critical thinking tool, then you're going to make a lot of wrong decisions. By the same token, if you're overthinking everything because you're really bent on critical thinking, you may waste a lot of time, and you might really tick a lot of people off as well that are just want you to get on with it and let's just make a decision and move on. And so it's really important that we're mindful of that we think about that. We think about, okay, is this a conclusion that we need to make right now? Is it urgent and we need to do it? And how important is it that we're accurate? If we don't really have to be accurate, but we have to be quick, then we need to just kind of use our instincts and just kind of make a decision and go. If it's something that we've got time, we don't have to decide right now. It's not an emergency, and the decision is going to have great outcomes down the road, well, then we may want to take our time a little bit more and use critical thinking skills and really figure out what's right, because accuracy really counts for a lot of decisions that we have to make. So anyway, guys, hopefully this is helpful. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.